Hi, my name's Linda, and I'm the brother educator at my sewing room. And I'm really excited today because we're going to start talking about machine embroidery, the basics. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about are the needles for embroidery. It's really important to understand the mechanics of machine embroidery so that you can always have good results. You must always use an embroidery needle. An embroidery needle is made for high-speed sewing. When your embroidery machine is going, it may be stitching at 650 stitches per minute. It may be going at 800 stitches per minute, which is significantly faster than a sewing machine. Also, you should always have lots of embroidery needles handy. They typically are only going to last for so many hours. I always buy my needles by the hundreds, so I use a rule of thumb about every 3 to 4 hours, or if you're getting inconsistent stitches, it's time to change your needle. I have two sizes here. I have the 7511, which is made for finer materials, and the 9014 is the size that I recommend for most people. These are the ones that you want to have many of. Okay. So if we talked about needles, let's talk about threads. Embroidery threads are broken down into two categories. You may have rayon, which is a natural fiber, or polyester, which obviously is a man-made fiber. Rayon is beautiful in color, but it will not last as long as polyester. The beautiful thing about polyester is that you can bleach, you can machine wash, you can abuse it, and it'll still look beautiful. Rayon is a much more delicate fiber, so you don't want to put it in towels, garments, anything that's going to be washed. Now, we're an OSD shop here, and we stock isocords, and I absolutely love isocord threads. Now, these are 40 weight, so just a quick reminder on the weights of threads. They typically start at an 8 weight, which is similar to a pearl cotton, and they go all the way up to 100 weight, which is fine silk. So all embroidery threads are 40, so they're a little on the thicker side, as you want them to be on the thicker side because you're embroidering. You want your embroidery to stand out. Now the nice thing about the isocord threads is the bottoms pop out, and you can wind your loose thread around it. I'll pick a different color so we can see that. The bottom pops down, and then you can wind your loose thread around there, and then you just pop it back up, and now your thread will not come unwound. There you go. I didn't learn that till about a year ago, so I think that's really, really cool. Now, there are a couple of companies that do sell embroidery threads. There is Madeira, Sulky, Isocord, and most embroidery designs can be digitized with any of the lines of threads. So your machine will actually display it in the threads that you like to use. And there's many conversion charts out there. I only buy Isocord. If I get an embroidery design and it's been digitized with Madeira, there are conversion charts out there where I'll say Madeira, say 123, that equals Isocord 0015. And those are handy to have. You can just Google those. And the nice thing about Isocord as well is we have the big spools here. You can even get a larger spool, which I believe is 5,000 meters, and that's really good for whites and blacks. These are the typical size you have, but they also come in the small little ones. And these are a Man by Mittler, which is the same company. So if you only need a little bit of embroidery thread, instead of buying the big comb, you can come in and buy these. And the color number is exactly the same. So if you come in and say they're out of a big or the medium cones, I can just pick up a couple of small ones. And that's the same thing. Okay. So that's your top thread. Let's talk about your bobbin thread. I always use the OASD bobbin thread. It's a spun polyester and it's a tad bit thicker. And I'm going to explain in a little bit about what makes a digitized stitch. You want to have a thicker thread in the bottom when you're embroidering. It helps fill your stitches out better. As you can see, these are 5,000 meters, and we 90% of the time always use white in our bobbin. So you just want to fill a bunch of bobbins with white. I have white, and I also have black. Now, if you're doing some micro embroidery, which I'll talk about in a minute, you'll want to use, these are made by Wonderfill. And this is a deco bob. This is an 80 weight. So this is getting towards the 100 weight silk. So this is a very fine thread for the bobbin. This is when you encounter micro embroidery, say like a tea towel. For example, here, I have a tea towel that I have embroidered with a recipe for chocolate fudge. Now these letters are the recipe. They're very, very, very small stitches. This is called micro embroidery, and I used a deco bob for this. If you don't use a deco bob, it makes your stitching very untidy, and you will not be happy with your results. So whenever I'm doing words, I tend to always use a deco bob or an 80 weight in my bobbin. Okay. So we've talked about our needles. Always use an embroidery needle and change it often. Always use an embroidery thread, which is 40 weight. Decide on your project whether you want to use a rayon or a polyester. And your key should be, is it going to be washed? Yes, then you definitely want to use a polyester. If it's a wall hanging that will not be in the sun, go ahead and use a rayon. Always use the appropriate bobbin thread. So for standard machine embroidery, the OASD bobbin thread is perfect. If you're doing micro embroidery, you want to use a deco bob from Wonderfill. Okay. So some of the other tools that you'll always want to have is embroidery tape. Now OASD makes a wash away or a tear away tape. This is a Kimberbell product. We are a Kimberbell shop here. And if you've watched any of my sewing embroideries, I use the embroidery tape for many things in sewing. It's a great little tool to have in your sewing kit. Now you need to have the tools. Now this is an OASD kit. This makes a great Christmas gift, birthday gift. You need to have the proper tools for embroidery, and having the proper scissors, tweezers makes all the difference. So from OASD, we have our curved scissors. So if I hold them like this, and this is really good for applique that we're going to be doing. Now you can have a double band, a single band, and I always go by what feels really good in your fingers. But it's essential to have a pair of curved scissors. So when you want to do applique, you'll understand. And these are our duck-billed scissors. And you use that so you don't cut your main fabric. And this is for when you're trimming away. It's very good to have. Essential is a pair of tweezers and snips. So these are the OASD snips. These are great for getting into those little spaces In fact, I have snips beside all my sewing machines. I actually have them on a lanyard that I keep next to my machine. It's much easier to use these to get into those small little areas, and a pair of tweezers. And that comes in this beautiful kit. You want to make sure you always have the right tools for the job. Don't try to use really big scissors to trim applique like these ones. You will not be happy with the results. This is an example of a double curve. These are my scissors. So you have the curve here and the curve here. And this is really good for getting in close to the fabric, the main fabric, and your applique. Okay, so now we've gone over our tools that we need to go.